Oh, hi. Um, Thanks for tuning in. And I'm Stacy Moya. I'm coming to you live from the Heart House. We are a social and emotional growth center for kids here in Tarzana. And we promote autonomy and self-awareness, and we talk about, through play all day long, why we feel the way we feel and why we react the way we do. And it's just a really super cool environment. I've been asked to talk a lot about it, and I'm finding myself like, I'm not quite sure what to say because I'm so excited to talk to you today about what I really want to talk about. So I'm just going to keep talking about, I'm just going to keep up on a subject that I was inspired to tonight by one of my clients who is here today. He's 20 years old. And I'm very full of it for tonight. So of course I'm going to answer questions if you're listening and you want want to ask a question, please do, and I'll stop what I'm talking about and answer your question. And until then, I'm going to talk about this. So I have a client who's 20 years old, and I've been his coach, his relationship skills coach, for the last, I think 4.5 years now. And I saw him today. He was one of 9 children that was born to the same mom. There, I think, between the 9 kids, 4 different dads, and all 9 children were taken away from the mom at some point. He was one of the last 3 to be taken, and he was taken away at 11 years old. So we had a really amazing appointment today, and I was so inspired by him. When he was done talking to me about memories from his childhood, he recently went to an amusement park, and it was so close to the place where he had spent so much of his childhood, which was in and out of a few motels around the area. And for the first time since he was been taken from there, he went back to revisit it and had several memories come, flashing into him. So I was privileged enough tonight and so honored to hear him talk about it. And he's a very resilient now and amazing, amazing guy. And when he was done and we were done talking about him, I told him what I was going to be doing for the rest of the night, which is this program. And I said, what do you think that if you could know when you were young, you'd want parents to know so they could give it to their children? What would make you, if you were a parent, listen to me? Or what do you think people need? And he said, well, I really would only want to listen to you if you started talking about yourself and your own childhood or mistakes you've made or some way to relate to you there. And he said, and then I would want to hear you talk about how important it is that parents teach children to speak up for themselves, to be who they are. And I know we spoke about autonomy, I think last week. But what he was telling me was, once you have an audience, start talking about this very important thing that parents can give children, which is that they have their own voice. And he said, teach about how we rob them from that voice. And so what I'm going to, hi Norma, hi Jewel. what I'm going to start with tonight, per his mirror, is I'm going to talk about myself, and I'm going to talk about the mistake that I made because of the ingredients that I got as a child, that I was just this close to passing it on to my own kid. And I'm going to just talk about that today. And, you know, it's a very real thing for me. So here goes. And I think I'm talking about this because I'm inspired to by, you know, my guy that I saw tonight. And because, you know, it's true. Like, I find such value in and respect in when I'm learning something, when I really get a real idea or feeling about the person that's teaching me. Yeah, I'm getting a little nervous now because, you know, I'm going to tell a very personal story. And I feel like keeping it real. I feel like letting anybody who watches this know that no matter how big our mistakes are, we just take a look at them and we own them and we start living in authenticity and in truth, and we're okay. And I don't think we can really help our children have a voice until we've heard our own. And so I think this was the very first dose of enlightenment that I had, and it happened when my daughter was 6 months old. And you know, if you watch this and you were ever around in any of my parenting classes, I've told this story before in a class, maybe not with as much detail as I'm going to tell tonight. Welcome to it again. Okay, so when I was growing up, I had a pretty hard time. I had a dad who was pretty violent and a mom who was absolutely neglectful and fed into my dad's anger, and she had a lot of jealousy and oh gosh, she just didn't like me. And it wasn't personal. She just didn't want kids, and she got pregnant on her wedding night. And she didn't grow up in a family where she felt very regarded, and she really, really wanted to be my dad's one and only. And, you know, then I was born, and I was a girl, and he started protecting me and adoring me, like the story goes. Right when I came home from the hospital, you know, there's a full story where my bassinet was covered with a netting, and he only let one person in the room at a time. And so my mom started getting the feeling like he cared for me more than her, and I was more important. And she started building a lot of animosity toward me. She didn't want to pick me up. By the time I was, you know, she said a couple weeks old, she didn't even believe my crying was real. She thought I was crying to get attention, or, you know, so it was a lot was going on. And my parents had a very triggered relationship. There was a lot of fighting. They talked about getting divorced several times a day. There were big outbursts of violence, and it was a rough space to grow up in, and I spent a lot of time watching. And I'm not quite sure what triggered in me, but when I was really, really, really young, I got that what I was watching wasn't okay, and what unjust felt like and looked like, and how to remove myself from it. And I was fascinated by watching people and, you know, just really getting an idea of why people behave the way they do. It was always fascinating to me. So I grew up in this neglective, violent household, and pretty much on my own. And hi, Ash. And I had my first baby at, I think I was 23 years old. And we had a flood in our house. And that flood caused us to have to move out of our house. And my husband at the time and my daughter and I left and stayed with my mom for a while. My daughter was 6 months old the day that I'm going to now talk about. And she had a lot of hair. I'm not kidding. She had so much hair. I cut her hair the day I brought her home from the hospital, I cut her hair because it was going into her mouth. She could suck on her own hair. That's so much hair she had. And so by the time she was 6 months old, she had a ton of hair, just really a ton. And I had just given her a bath, and I set her in the sink. In my mom's bathroom, I set her in the sink, and I put pillows all around her so she could be propped up and, so I could dry her hair. And my mom's very particular, very, very particular. Everything has a space, and there's mostly things that are around at this time in our life you can't touch. And I didn't think. I wasn't thinking. I loved my daughter. I was taking really good care of her. Nothing from my childhood had come, rushing out of me until this moment. But I didn't move any of my mom's beautiful items that she had on her bathroom counter out of the way. I just sat my daughter, her name's Madeline, in the sink, and I'm about to dry her hair. And it's going okay for the first few minutes. And then I notice she's reaching, of course, because she's 6 months old, she's reaching for like my mom's perfume bottle. And I tell her no, I don't remember exactly, but something like it's not yours or don't touch it. And at this point, I'm still not thinking to give her something of her own to hold or removing them, or what I would teach now is just to let her hold them and teach her what gentle means and fragile. But oh gosh, so I took it from her and I put it down and I let her know that, I don't want you to touch that. And so then I'm drying her hair and she reaches for the next thing. And I tell her, no, I already told you once, don't touch that. And I remember feeling uptight and different than I had ever felt with her. Like I was annoyed by her. I was annoyed by my 6-month-old baby, and all that was happening was she was sitting there acting like a baby. And so I took the next thing away and I set it back down where it goes instead of moving it. And I think this went on for a few minutes. I don't remember it being too long, but for a few minutes. And then Madeline moved her body. She moved herself to give herself more leverage to go reach something else. And I lost it. I picked her up under her arms. She's facing the mirror. And I took her out of the sink and set her closer to me, not really violently hard, but not soft. Too hard, a little too hard. And I saw myself in the mirror, and I was like, it just struck me like I saw my parents. I felt my childhood flash. I noticed what I was doing to my kid. I was not home. I was not thinking. I was not seeing into her. I was disregarding her. I was making sure that my mom's stuff was okay, and there was so much that mattered more than my kid. And I was blind. I was blind to her. I was not in tune with her at all. And I don't know how, really, but I had been in tune with her the whole 6 months. I mean, really in tune. But not in this moment. I left the building. I literally left. I was no longer the mom that she had previous to that moment. And I realized in that moment that I could have done damage to my kid. I saw myself, and I don't necessarily know that I would have done any physical damage to her, but I knew that I wasn't thinking well, and I wasn't placing value on her, and I wasn't seeing her as a person, and I wasn't in touch, and I was acting out. I was getting back. I was getting back on my childhood. I was taking it out on her. In that very moment, she became my scapegoat. And I'm so grateful that I was in front of a mirror, because I think it might have been what woke me up enough, because I saw myself. I saw the blank. I saw the careless, very careless, selfish reaction. And I took her downstairs and handed her to my mom and said, I don't know how much time I'm going to need, but I need you to watch her because I need to be alone. And I got up on top of the sink and I sat there. And it was really the first time that I ever let myself look into myself young. And I just sat there with myself, staring into the mirror, letting myself feel what it felt like to be a child that wasn't seen and wasn't acknowledged. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to backtrack a second because I forgot something important. The first thing I did when I came back upstairs and looked at myself in the mirror, when I got up on the counter, was judge the shit out of myself. I was saying things like, okay, you can't be a mom anymore. You can't teach parenting classes anymore. I had just started dabbling in, learning this theory and, what to do with children and how to see in, and becoming a teacher. And I knew that I needed a punishment. And it was to wipe the slate clean. You're not good anymore. You can't do this anymore. You're not fit to be a mom. You shouldn't be a mom. I judged myself up and down and for a while. And then I don't really remember. Let me see. No. I don't remember what triggered me to care for myself in that moment, or to actually let myself be and learn something. But thank gosh, whatever it was, I don't know, but I did it. And I started realizing that what was happening to me was I had a trigger, and it was a familiar trigger, and that trigger had been put on me before. And so it was now in me, and whatever's in me has to come out of me, because us humans can't leave stuff in. We leak out all the time. So we know this. We know if we're doing things in our lives that isn't good, we just know. The good things, the things that are not good that are happening in our life, is because our stuff's leaking out. It's just leaking out, leaking out, leaking out. And that's all that was happening to me in that moment, was my childhood was starting to leak out. And I was very ready to scapegoat my precious baby girl. I see this all the time in parents. We are getting even for our childhood. We are leaking out. And I'm you. I'm just like it. I had experiences when I was a childhood. I had ingredients that went in me and that, want to be out because they're no good in there. And this was the start of me noticing them coming out. So I gave myself probably a good hour of sitting there acknowledging how often I was meant to not touch things or listen or be good or just not be me. Just have a very fake, inauthentic, do the right thing, be good for mommy behavior. And now I wanted to take it out on, not wanted to, but before I knew what was happening, I was about to take it out on my own kid. It woke me up. It woke me up. So today, when my guy that I was having a private session with told me that before he'd want to hear about any parenting advice I'd have if he were, a father, he'd want to be able to relate. And I've been doing my job for over 20 years now, and I relate to every issue that every person that has ever walked into my office has talked about. I think we all are each other, and we all have the capacity to rewire our past. We all have the capacity to not act our childhood out, but we need to notice. And so his want, when I asked my client today, if you're just tuning in, what he thought all kids should, like the primary thing, the thing that he thought all kids really need is their own voice. And I agree. I think it's really important. And I know that tonight, we don't have time for me to start talking about how I realized that for my kid, because she was 6 months old. But I did. I realized that if I didn't start letting her be her, and if I was going to take my childhood out on her, if I was possibly going to ever slip again, now that I knew that I had this going on in me, that that my childhood, myself, my everything that makes me up for every day that I'd ever been on the planet was really inside of me, and how capable, how possible it is that it just comes roaring out is, I would have caused a big mess with her. I'll backtrack for one more second, because I do want to tell you that when I was done with my self-realization, or whatever we want to call it, and I went back downstairs, Madeline was still awake, and I put her on my lap, and I told her, I said, Mommy left, and I'm really, really, really sorry, and I think I'm back now. And she was 6 months old, but I told her exactly what I did, and I told her a little bit about what I'm telling you now. And I talked straight into her, and I continued to talk straight into her like she was a valuable, living, breathing, smart, sensitive, deserving person on the planet, and not, just a tiny baby. And it's been amazing. It's been an amazing relationship, and I got a lot of really good stuff out of learning that lesson that night. So when I was told tonight that what my client thinks the most important thing that parents can do for their children is give them a voice, I agree. So tonight, hi, Summer's grandma. Hi, Carol. Thanks so much for listening. So much. I so love your granddaughter and your daughter. Daughter-in-law. Sorry. Oops. We have to let our kids have a voice. We have to recognize that as adults, all of the stuff that's been put in us since the moment we arrived on the planet is really in there. And they're watching and they get it. And if they, oh, she says more like a daughter. So, thank you. Didn't I know? We don't have the right as adults or parents to rob our children from who they are. And who they are is not what we're requiring them to be. We only are going to know who they are if we're looking in, all the way in, and quieting down and listening. It is really easy. I have to take a sip of water, sorry. I've been doing everything not to get sick and my throat's scratchy tonight. Just a little. Hardly at all. It's really easy to rob a person of who they are. It's really easy to create another human being to be who you want them to be. It is very easy to control, over-control, smother, deny, demean, devalue, shame, give up on, get annoyed by, fall in and out of love with a child. They need us. They love unconditionally. They forgive constantly. And they really, they meaning us, you know, all of us, they, us, need us to witness and see into them more than they need us to design who they are. I was about to design my 6-month-old daughter to not to be curious. I was wholeheartedly in that moment teaching her, don't reach out and touch something. Not supposed to. I was mad. I was then teaching her, definitely don't make that same mistake twice, because the first reach out was one thing. The second one, I was angrier. And by the third time, I'm picking her up and moving where she is and putting her down. And, you know, I shocked her and I shocked me. It was easy. And it was real. And we all, well, I can't really say we all, but every parent that I've ever worked with in the past 20 years has had an experience or several of trying to be able to feel comfortable in our own skin as parents and to be able to be in relation to our child. Every person, I can really say this, including myself, every person I've ever worked with has had the experience where they were taking their childhood out on their child. And when we do that, we rob them of their voice. We teach them very quickly who we need them to be. And it might even be that we rob them of their voice by being so big or so angry that we teach them how to be out of control. So maybe their own voice, who they were, wasn't going to be an out of control person, but they become a child that's tantruming or not being able to process because we've handed that over to them. So I'm not just talking about making a child quiet or scared to speak. I'm literally talking about how easy it is to rob someone of what their own authentic identity is by showing them through our behaviors and our actions from the time they're young of who we need them to be. And what I was about to show my daughter is that I needed her to be extremely behaved. I was about to rob her of her curiosity and her own 6 month of lifeness. I was requiring her to sit still. Like, how is that even possible? How is it possible to require a 6-month-old to sit still while they're in front of a mirror while a whole bunch of beautiful things are right at their grasp? How do we require our child to be quiet for a really long time while we're on the phone? Or I could go on and on. So tonight, I just really wanted to share this truth about my start to motherhood, and I'd love to be able to give, anybody watching, anybody not watching, if I could give a gift, I think I would just want to give the fact that this is real, and what goes in must come out. There's no way it can't. And to find a forgiveness in ourselves, to find an insight in ourselves that that's all that's happening, that, before we're parents, we've spent a lot of time on this planet, a lot of stuff went in, we had a whole childhood of stuff happen. For many of us, it wasn't that great. And it's what we know, it's where we form our patterns, our ways of being, and it comes out so easily. It just flows right out. And we can correct it. And even if you have a child that you haven't been noticing, and they're 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 or 15 or however old they are, we can learn to self-correct and self-reflect and own and act authentic and live in the truth and unwire and rewire. Yeah, so after all this time, a lot of time has gone by for me. My daughter is just turned 23. Oh my gosh. And just in the last 5 years, with the help of my partner, I've opened a really cool place called the Heart House. This place where for 4 hours a day, 4 days a week, we practice true authenticity. We have a voice, we get clear mirroring, we find out what our triggers are, We have a community of parents that are in it for each other, that give feedback and hear feedback, and children are forming bonds and relating to each other in authenticity, and it's so amazing. And I haven't stopped. You know, I'm 48 years old, and I still find myself, when I think I've done something wrong, if it's wrong enough, I feel a self-punishment like I did that day all those years ago, you know, 22 and a half years ago. And, you know, wanting to punish myself, or, you know, really go into some deep self-loathing about how I shouldn't be a mom and I shouldn't be allowed. And you know, that comes up for me still. Not in the parenting place, but in places when I've made big mistakes, I feel like I need some kind of big punishment, and then quickly I'm able to use my rewiring, that all it is a pattern from my childhood creeping back up. And where am I going with this? I have already forgot. I have so much to say. Oh, so yeah. Now I've created, you know, with help, this place where kids can come and we learn. We learn about our own human beingness, who we really are, why we really are behaving the way we're behaving, why I, you know, in relation to each other, why I'm so mad when I didn't get to pick the book, or why I think when you have the toy I want and I just want to grab it from you, why I think I'm so right and entitled to have it. Just so many life-skilled things that we learn during the day. And I'm so lucky, because during that time of the day when we're in school, we give the kids a space to be exactly who they are. There's no shame in any of it, even in the real dark. And I learned this quote. I don't have it exactly, but I've lived by it for a really long time, and I love it. And I don't know who wrote it, because it came to me anonymously. But it's when you give someone the space to be authentic, magic happens. And magic really happens. It's incredible to watch children really be who they actually are. Their deep, true, authentic self. It's amazing, and it's incredible that, you know, especially for the first while they're here, before they really get the hang of how to change from school to back to home, to watch what happens and how quickly they change to their false front as soon as their parents walk through the door. It's a big, significant change. And I guess tonight I'm just really wanting to say, try out some self-love and some forgiveness to yourself for whatever mistakes you've made, and really go into realizing that all the things that you've been through your whole life are really in there. And the ones that are dying to come out because they can't be in anymore, it's really likely that we're taking them out on another person. And if you find yourself taking them out on your child, whether it's by smothering or over-controlling, or not being able to have their feelings, or not wanting to hear them, or feeling selfish, or feeling a little neglectful, or grabbing their arms or pulling them, or anything that you can tell, that you can feel inside of you that just isn't loving or isn't nurturing or isn't really the lesson that you're trying to put in, or if you're finding your days hard, or if you're finding your parenting is being a parent is taxing, or you're getting annoyed with your child, or you've fallen out of love with them, or whatever it could be, give yourself some care, you know, and then go self-reflect. Go get forgiven and start something new. Start something simple and quiet and new. And if you want some help, text in or write in or call in, or come join us, or get help from anybody that, you know, a friend, or get what you need so you can start letting your child be who they are and have their own voice. And so you get to witness another person instead of create another person. And it's really fantastic. Oh, give the email and the website. Oh, because I know the email and the website. Yeah, I'm only good when the kids are here. I'm really not good at anything other than that. Oh, yeah. I'm sure Julia's laughing at me too right now. info@thehearthousela.com. Yeah, go ahead, send a message in. Let us know what you need. Let us know if you have a preschool age kid that might want to come into this environment. Come check out this environment. Oh, you know what else I wanted to say? Happy Coming Out Day. I really wanted to acknowledge that. And so happy Coming Out Day. And thanks for listening. And I know we only have a couple more minutes, but if you've been listening, or if you're listening right now and you have something to say or feedback or a question, it'd be really great that I could stop talking for a second and acknowledge someone. Okay, so Julie is, oh, that's cool. That's cool. Jules is posting our unique approach and what the website is. Thank you. That's cool. That's important. And Patricia, hi. I don't think we've met. Thank you so much for joining in. And Carol, thank you. And I love being with your granddaughter every day. She's amazing. It's been an amazing, amazing journey she and I have had since she's been little. And oh, I just so enjoy her. She makes me laugh, and she teaches me something every day. And hi, Ashley. Thank you so much for joining in, and being a part of this journey with me. We've known each other for a really long time, and I really appreciate all your suggestions and your input. And thank you for the day that you came and hung out here at the Heart House with me. And thank you, Julia, for watching, tuning in tonight, and creating this most amazing space where children get to be who they are. And it's been a really cool experience being with you, watching all the magic happen. So I know it's 2 minutes early, and I'm a little bit talked out. And if no one else has something to say, I just want to end with thank you so much for listening. And just try to find it inside of yourself to be the mom that you wish you had, or the dad that you wish you had, or the grandma you wish you had, or the friend you wish you had. Just go work on being that. All right. Thanks for listening. And okay, I will tell Summer that I met her grandma, and I will absolutely give her a hug for you first thing tomorrow morning. Have a good night, and thanks a lot for tuning in. Peace.